The year is 1945. The month is April. For almost 6 years, the world had been engulfed in the flames of World War II, a conflict of unprecedented scale and devastation. From the beaches of Normandy to the deserts of North Africa, from the frozen Eastern Front to the jungles of the Pacific, the war had left an indelible mark on every corner of the globe. Entire cities lay in ruins, millions had perished, and countless lives were forever scarred by the horrors they had witnessed. By April 1945, the tide of war had decisively turned against the Axis powers. In Europe, the once mighty German war machine was on the verge of collapse, relentlessly pushed back by the combined might of the Allied forces. In the East, the Soviet Red Army, fueled by a thirst for revenge and a determination to liberate their occupied homeland, was advancing inexorably towards Berlin, the heart of the Nazi regime. Meanwhile, in the Pacific, the United States continued its island-hopping campaign, inching closer to the Japanese mainland with each bloody battle. Despite facing fierce resistance and heavy casualties, the Americans, led by the resolute President Harry S. Truman, were determined to see the war through to its bitter end, no matter the cost. The world held its breath, caught in a state of anxious anticipation. The end of the war, long hoped for, seemed tantalizingly close. Yet with each passing day, the conflict continued to exact a heavy toll, leaving behind a trail of death, destruction, and despair. The stage was set for the final act of this global tragedy, one that would shape the course of human history for generations to come. Deep beneath the shattered streets of Berlin, in the claustrophobic confines of his underground bunker, Adolf Hitler, the architect of Nazi Germany's reign of terror, faced his own demise. The once boastful Führer, who had envisioned himself as the master of Europe, was now a shadow of his former self, a broken and delusional man clinging desperately to the remnants of his shattered dreams. As Soviet shells rained down upon the crumbling city above, Hitler retreated further into his subterranean sanctuary, surrounded by a dwindling circle of loyal followers. The air within the bunker was thick with tension, fear, and the stench of impending defeat. With each passing hour, the reality of Germany's inevitable defeat became increasingly difficult to ignore. On April 30th, 1945, with Soviet troops closing in on his position, Hitler made the final, desperate decision to end his own life. In the depths of his bunker, he committed suicide, taking with him his wife, Eva Braun. Their bodies were hastily cremated in the Reich Chancellery Garden as Soviet forces stormed the city above. The death of Hitler marked the symbolic end of the Nazi regime. The once mighty Third Reich, which had terrorized Europe for over a decade, collapsed in upon itself, leaving behind a legacy of death, destruction, and unimaginable suffering. As Allied forces advanced deeper into Germany, they stumbled upon a horror that would forever shock the conscience of humanity: the Nazi concentration camps. These camps, designed as instruments of systematic extermination, stood as grim testaments to the depths of human depravity. The names of these camps, Auschwitz, Dachau, Buchenwald, Treblinka, would become synonymous with unimaginable cruelty and suffering. Behind their barbed wire fences and heavily guarded gates, millions of innocent men, women and children were subjected to unspeakable horrors. Upon liberation, the world bore witness to the full extent of Nazi barbarity. Emaciated survivors, their bodies bearing the physical and psychological scars of unimaginable trauma, emerged from the camps, their eyes reflecting the horrors they had endured. The images of piles of corpses, mass graves, and gas chambers shocked the world, exposing the true nature of the Nazi regime and the devastating consequences of its ideology of hate and intolerance. The liberation of the concentration camp served as a stark reminder of the fragility of human civilization and the ever-present dangers of unchecked hatred and discrimination. Section 4. Japan's stubborn resistance. A formidable foe in the Pacific. While the war in Europe was drawing to a close, the Pacific theater remained engulfed in a bitter and brutal struggle. Japan, fueled by a fervent nationalism and a deep-seated belief in its own superiority, refused to surrender, determined to fight to the bitter end. The Japanese military, deeply entrenched on numerous Pacific islands, posed a formidable challenge to the advancing American forces. From the jungles of Guadalcanal to the beaches of Iwo Jima, Japanese soldiers fought with fanatical zeal, their resistance fueled by a sense of duty and a belief that surrender was dishonorable. The battles in the Pacific were characterized by their ferocity and brutality. Both sides suffered heavy casualties, and the fighting took a heavy toll on the morale of the troops. The Americans, despite their superior firepower and resources, found themselves locked in a grueling war of attrition against a determined and resourceful enemy. Section 5. The Dawn of a New Age. The atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Faced with Japan's unwavering determination to fight on and fearing a costly invasion of the Japanese mainland, the United States made the fateful decision to unleash a new and terrifying weapon, the atomic bomb. On August 6, 1945, an American B-29 bomber, the Enola Gay, dropped an atomic bomb on the Japanese city of Hiroshima, instantly killing tens of thousands of people and reducing the city to rubble. 3 days later, a second atomic bomb was dropped on the city of Nagasaki, causing even more death and destruction. The atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki marked a turning point in human history. They ushered in the nuclear age, an era defined by the chilling possibility of nuclear annihilation. The use of these devastating weapons remains a subject of intense debate and controversy to this day, raising profound moral and ethical questions about the nature of warfare and the limits of human action.